pause.
Let's come and sit on our mat. What we should have is, ideally, you will need a some kind of block. Now, this can also be, you know, a book. Tissue box is pretty good, especially if it's a bamboo one. And either a blanket or a towel, and perhaps a strap or a flat yoga block. And again, a book can be useful for that. So, you know, we may or may not use all of these things, but we've got them ready for us in case we need them. And we're going to come to sit, for those of you that are comfortable to, in a kneeling posture. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a little bit of support under our bum. That might need to be quite high support. So we're going to come into Virasana. Now, Virasana is a posture that can be strong for some people. So you strong in the knees, that is. So you need to get your support right. So you definitely, everyone needs a bit of support for this, even if you can do it without support. It's our first posture of the class on a Monday morning, and we probably need some support. So you're going to come to bring your feet either side of your lift, and you're going to bring your knees in towards each other. Okay? And then we're going to sit down. Now, for some people, their knees will need to move out a little wider, and that's fine. But they are coming in close to each other. They don't have to be against each other. We're going to draw our calf flesh back. So with your 3 middle fingers, if you take them to the back of the knees, like have a little dig around there with your fingers, and then you steadily draw the calf flesh back towards the heels, and then you draw your buttock flesh out and back. That's it, perfect. And then you may rest either with your hands there on your thighs, or you can place your hands onto the soles of your feet. Now this, obviously, if you're going higher, so some of you will be going higher to feel comfortable in the knees. If you're going higher, then, you know, you might not necessarily meet your feet. So I recommend hands on your thighs or hands in your lap like this. And perhaps we might close our eyes. Now just feel into the neck, feel into the back of your neck, and check that its alignment feels natural. It feels spacious. We're not overly stretching it. So in other words, we're not dropping the chin forwards, and we're not compressing either. So we're not lifting the chin. So we just want this nice natural position where the throat feels spacious, the back of the neck feels spacious. And then with our eyes closed, we're going to simply breathe. That's all we're doing here now. Now, I say that's all we're doing. There may be a spontaneous action that arises, but it's not arising out of our need to do anything. So it might be that while you're here, you know, maybe 1 or 2, you might find that you naturally sort of want to sway into the posture, that you naturally want to move the shoulders or have a little wiggle around to find that place of steadiness, ease, sthira sukham. And breath. So as we settle into the body and settle into the breath, you know, what we are moving towards ultimately settling into is into being. And we have this, you know, common phrase in Sanskrit, in yoga, Satchitananda, which means being, consciousness, and bliss. And, you know, I actually really love this phrase because it wraps up everything in yoga. You know, when we really drop into being, what we are dropping into is consciousness. And what that leads us towards is bliss. And it's not the bliss of, you know, having our desires satisfied. That's what we often think of as bliss. But those blisses are, you know, not that they're invalid. It's perfectly fine to satisfy our desires sometimes. But those blisses are temporary. What we drop into is we drop into the underlying nature of being that is always blissful. It's not a blissful experience that we're creating. It's a blissful experience that we are recognizing in our innate being. So let's release our hands wherever they are. Let's bring our hands together so we lightly interlace our fingers. And then we're going to extend our palms away. And we're going to raise our arms up slowly, bringing a little light tone to the belly, reaching up into the center of the palms, breathing, maybe having a little wiggle here, perhaps from side to side. That may help you to start to tease out the side ribs. Breathing. Okay, and then you may slowly release your hands, release your arms down, staying with your breath. And then we're going to bring ourselves to lean forward. So you can place your hands onto the floor in front of you. You might want to give your legs a little extension out and just feel that space opening back out into the knees. Okay, and then what we're going to do from here is we're going to bring ourselves down onto our mat. So you can pop your equipment to one side. We don't need any of that now. We're going to come down with our legs out in front of us. Okay. And we're going to bring ourselves down onto our elbows. Okay. Now, here on our elbows, what we're going to feel now, if anyone does have any shoulder issues, particularly rotator cuff, you can keep your elbows a little further forward, so in the direction towards your feet. If you can, walk your elbows a little further back and feel that little squeeze in between the shoulder blades. So if you are, you know, you're not dealing with any injuries in the shoulders, that's going to be fine. So you can walk your elbows back. Okay, now we just pause here and let's just feel into that little gentle squeezing between the shoulder blades. You're not adding to that squeezing, by the way. We're just feeling the squeeze that comes from this basic structure of the pose. Now we can lift on into the chest. We might move the chest a little from side to side. Don't get stuck in the neck. So you can freely move your head as you need to. Okay, now what we're going to do here is we're going to lift up your leg. Now you can lift up your leg that's closest to me, or if you have the short end of the mat towards me, you know, either leg, lift up a leg. And then you're going to cross that leg over the other leg and we take a little twist. Now, as we take a little twist, you can press into what becomes your back arm. So you can lift up the elbow to bring the leg towards the floor. Okay. That's it, perfect. Then descending the elbow back down, rolling back into the center, bringing the leg back to the floor, breathing. Then we'll pick up the other leg and again, we'll take it over, reaching into it. And then as you start to reach the leg to a certain point, you'll want to lift up your elbow and you can press into your hand and just lean into that twist a little more and breathe into it, okay? Coming back in, leg starts to come back into the center, elbow comes down to the floor and lands, leg lands. Let's go one more time to each side, so lifting up that leg, and again, extending over, lifting up the elbow, breathing, just enjoying the movement here. So sometimes when we pick up a movement, and if it's a new movement, first of all, in fact, we're going to do one more movement to each side after this, because first of all, it can be a little mechanical because we're working out, you know, the mechanics of the movement and the flow of the movement. So it may take one or two movements before we can start to really give to it, before we can start to feel, you know, the yoga of the movement, the integration of the movement. Okay, well done. When you come back into the center, you're going to slide your hands back behind you, push into your hands so you can bring yourselves up. Now, when you bring yourselves up, we'll just briefly draw our buttock flesh out and back, but we are going to be lifting off our buttocks. Don't take a support under your seat as you would normally do, because we're not going to be here for long. So we're going to bring our hands a little further back, a little like we were preparing to come into Purvottasana. I forgot the name of the pose for a moment. So we're not actually going to come into full Purvottasana at this stage, but you're going to bring your fingertips, so they are a couple of inches, maybe 3 inches, what's that, probably sort of 7-8 centimeters behind us perhaps. So your hands are a little further back. You can see where they are in relationship to my shoulders, and at this stage it starts to open my chest. So you can press into your hands, and let's get a little lift into the chest here. So you're almost taking yourself towards a little back bend position here. But we want, as we do with all back bends, we want it to come out of length through the spine. So the sitting bones can deepen down into the floor. Our breath can deepen into the body. And then we can find that gradual lift. We can reach into it, and maybe you want to move into it. So, you know, this area in the upper back can commonly feel tight, and it often feels quite good to get into that area. So feel free to move. Now we're going to press into our hands from here, and we're going to lift our bum up. Good to see, we've got a child joining us as well now. And we're going to turn the hips. So you're staying hovering off the floor with your hips, but you're letting yourself lean to either side. So there's a roll across the heels. You feel that lovely when you move to the side, deep stretch through the back of the ribs. And then you just play into that at your own pace. That's it. Perfect. Just keep moving from side to side, rolling across. Breathing. Now, if you feel, you know, take a rest, obviously. I'll remind you to do that anytime you need to. So this may become strong on the shoulders. So bring your bum back down to the floor if you need to. But if you're okay, you can now take the top leg over and return it, a little like we did with our first posture. Whilst we're on the floor, you can lean into it and you can extend the leg out into it. That's it. Perfect. Okay, well done. Let's bring ourselves back to the center. Land yourselves. Draw the buttock flesh out and back again to help the natural tilt of the pelvis. Drop the shoulders. This is where you may need to sit on a block. So if you feel collapsed, you can sit on a block or a book or a folded towel or blanket. So we'll just come into Dandasana. So if you are doing this, then raise up your seat. So that will help you do this. Hands can come forwards, and then you can slide your fingertips back next to the hips. Elbows can remain bent, so you're not pushing the shoulders up. Let the shoulders release down. Perfect. And breathe. Now, Dandasana, this is one of those postures that it's not much to look at in terms of, we can look at all sorts of fancy things that people do with their body these days. And, more and more, they're becoming more and more kind of unusual, some of the things that we see, and almost things that seem impossible. And Dandasana is a posture that seems very accessible, very easy, very maybe uninspiring to look at, but once we're in it, it's a wonderful pose. There's a natural meditative quality that I find in this posture, that pulls us into being. And we also find when we're in it, the experience of the posture is it's anything but dull, it's strong. We can start to feel that work through the quadriceps, through the front of the thighs. We can feel the work through the back muscles, helping us to lift up. We can feel the flow of the breath. And we can feel this posture, doing what it's supposed to be doing in terms of yoga. It's pulling us into attention. It's pulling us in towards maybe this Satchitananda experience. Even if there is a strong sensation there that perhaps doesn't fit with our idea of meeting our desires, that strong sensation is a doorway into the experience of Ananda, of bliss. Don't forget, you are free to move. Okay, let's ease ourselves out of Dandasana. And let's bring ourselves over onto our hands and knees. Okay. I'm going to turn around because it's a better view for you, I think, in terms of light. Okay, so you're on your hands and knees, you're spreading your fingers. You can have your wrists a little further forwards than the shoulders, so there's a little openness at the wrist. So, it's useful to just check your wrist creases. If they're deep, you're a little too far forwards. If you are able to start to open out those creases, although we may have more creases perhaps from all of the hand washing we've been doing. So open out those creases so your shoulders are a little further back from the wrists. Your knees are below your knees. Your feet are around about hip width apart. Your hands are shoulder width apart. Your fingers are spread, and we're just going to feel into a little bit of movement here. We are, of course, you've probably guessed, prepping to go into Adho Mukha Svanasana, downward facing dog. But preparation and preparation poses, it's a phrase that I don't particularly like because it suggests that the yoga happens in the future. So although I have in mind that I'm going to take you into downward facing dog, whilst we're here, we are here. This is it. This is the yoga. So play into some movement as you wish. A little forwards moving, a little backwards moving, a little wiggling, a little playing. So we have a wonderful word in Sanskrit, uchalata, which means a sort of combination of creative movement or a sparkling of divine bliss. So like, I sort of think of it as those sort of sparkles we see on the sea on a sunny day, that they blink in and blink out, or like stars in the sky. And that's what I'd like our movement to be like, sort of sparkling, arising where it needs to arise and subsiding where it needs to subside. And then when you're ready, wherever your movement has taken you, so that's spontaneous, tuning in, creative, we're going to bring ourselves up into our downward facing dog. So you can press into your hands, you can press into your feet, you can reach back through the body, you can play, you can breathe, you can sway your hips, you might be bending a knee. Again, you know, this is a posture that movement's often encouraged in, but you know, don't let that movement become habitual or mechanical. Let it reflect this uchalata, this creative and spontaneous movement, like a sparkle moving through your body. And that's essentially what we're doing. This is partly why I like this work, this alluding towards this sparkling quality, because that's how I feel yoga, or that's what I feel yoga is. It's a waking up, it's an illumination of the body, and it sort of often feels like we're sort of switching on lots of little internal lights in the body, little lights of awareness. Okay, well done. Let's bring ourselves back down onto our hands and knees. We'll take a slow seat back in an upright position, Vajrasana. So we can allow the shoulders to settle, the elbows to settle, the wrists to settle, the breath to settle. And when we've allowed that settling, you know, we can stay here. Obviously, those of you who need to take support between buttocks and heels can take support. If you feel the spontaneous urge to move forwards into a child pose, that's fine. You can go into a child pose. I'm really happy for you to do that. But let it come out of a place that's spacious, non-reactive, non-conditioned. Okay, we're going to bring ourselves up onto our knees. So if you've moved into a child pose, come back up slowly. Take your time as you need to. I'm going to raise our bum up off the floor. Now, some of you might need padding under your knees, which you can grab a blanket. The other thing you can do is you can sort of fold over the end of your yoga mat so your knees can be padded like this. So if you feel you need a bit of padding, take that padding. And so some of you might be practicing on carpet, so you might feel well padded already. Your knees can be around about a hand width apart. So if you just place your fist between your knees, then that's going to measure the distance. Okay, and then your feet directly behind you. And we're going to just pause here. So we'll feel that contact that we have through our knees and through our feet, and perhaps through our shins, depending on how much our ankles move. And then as we feel into that contact, what we want to feel is a rising up. Is a rising up through the body. Now, that rising up through the body may rise up again with movement, perhaps. I'm going to turn myself sideways on, so you've got more of a view of that. And, you know, it might be that you feel that natural urge to perhaps sway a little, or even sort of slightly twist from side to side to move the body. What we're looking to pick up is this internal flow. We're looking to pick up a little internal flow that comes up through. Okay, that's it, breathe. Now we're going to raise our arms up above our head. And we're going to keep that lift. So I want the lift to be felt internally, to come up through the center line of the body, but It might be that to really find that lift, that we have to loosen the outer body. We have to get into the side ribs. So we might have to turn a little, lean to the side a little, play into it a little. Now we can find a little support here as well from the pelvic floor. Now this is not a big gripping that happens here, but first of all, it's just a sensitivity to observing that area. And then there may be a little light tone that comes in. And that is for the purpose of moving energy up through the body. Okay. Now, we're going to take one arm back and we're going to allow ourselves to turn into this as the arm comes back. We're keeping the lift. This is important. It's really important every time we move to a twisting type action that we have length in the spine. Move to the other side. So circles behind you as you bring your arm back in, but you keep the length up through the body. You keep the flow of the breath with this movement. Moving at your own pace. Okay, when you next come to the center, having turned equally to both sides, we're going to pause there. We're going to interlace our fingers, allow the elbows to bend a little, release through the shoulders, so give them a little movement if you need to, and then turn your palms up towards the ceiling and lift. Breathing. Forehead soft, jaw released. Okay, now release your fingers, release your arms down in a wide circle. You may come back and just sit back on your heels. Take support if you need to between buttocks or heels or underneath the ankles. And bring your hands to rest in your lap. And drop in, and maybe we can drop in to feel the sparkle through the body. Perhaps we can feel it through the shoulders and upper back where we've been working, across the chest. So just let yourself move into it as you need to. I just saw Catherine having a little move of the neck, and that looks like a good thing to move into now. So feel free if you want to move into the neck, play around with that. So we can start to feel this softening between where the shoulders and the neck meet. That's where we can often feel a little tense and caught. Okay. Let's bring ourselves up to standing now. And bring yourselves into Tadasana. So we're going to bring the feet in close towards each other. There may be a little bit of contact between the feet, but maybe not. So you check in with your ankles, your knees, and your hips. So for most people, perhaps the heels will be apart. So rather than just thinking that you have to place your feet in a specific way, I mean, we are paying good attention to the feet and our placement, but What we want to feel is that the front of the thighs, the front of the shins, the very center is pointing forward. So that's what you're aligning. It's not just an alignment of the feet. We're placing the feet to align the whole body. So spread the toes. Obviously, there's various things that impact on where we place our feet. Arthritic knees will mean we need to be a little wider. Bunions will affect how we place toes in relationship to each other. So, feel into that position that feels steady. It feels like we've made this conscious placement. And what it does is hopefully it drops us into this experience of, okay, it's arrival. We're arriving in Tadasana. We're arriving into our center. And as we arrive into our center, again, this is an opportunity to experience bliss states. There are said to be 7 states of bliss within the Tantra tradition. And the first one, Nityananda, which refers to one's own innate bliss. And we experience that by coming to the heart center. So drop into your heart center. And as you drop into your heart center, feel space. Space arises through the body. Breath moves freely through the body. And we give ourselves here. Okay. Now, I'd like you to just lean over a little more towards the left foot and just lift your right foot up off the floor. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to take that foot. It's a little bit like the movement we did when we were on the floor. So we're going to cross that leg over the other, not too far. Take it to the floor in front of us. Then we're going to bring in the opposite arm, your left arm, and we're going to extend that in the opposite direction. Extend the right arm away. That's it. So we're going into this sort of twisting action. Now, breathe. You may, if you have any discomfort in the knee, so the back knee, perhaps you might need to bend it a little. So if it feels a bit too sort of open in the back of the knee, bend that knee a little. Light tone in the belly, lift in the chest, and really reach into that. And you may move into it. Perhaps you might lean back and extend forwards to feel into that stretch. Perfect. Okay. Bringing the arm back down, swinging the leg back in, placing the foot, taking a breath. So taking the breath, all my references to the breath, they're not glib references. It's very easy to just keep saying and breathe when we practice yoga and or teach yoga, and I do say it, but what I actually mean, it's sort of a shortcut for breathe with awareness, breathe with your whole being. Okay, lean onto the other foot and then allow the left foot to come out to the side a little, lift and extend it forwards, crossing in front of the leg, and then just land the foot. You may stay up on the toes, you can land the heel. Watch out if you're landing the heel, if it feels tight in the lower back, I recommend coming back up onto the toes. And then bring your right arm around so it's crossing, and we're leaning into it and we're stretching into it. So again, we may move into this action. We might lean back and stretch into it. Perfect. Little light tone in the belly to keep that extension. Remember, this is the first rule really of any twisting action, is that we are finding length. Perfect. And then come back in. Bring your leg back in. Drop into the flow of your breath. And if it's not quite flowing, take a deep, steady breath. reach into your body with that breath, and then an extended exhalation, and then that often will provide a reset for the breath to find its own pace. So again, coming back to our heart center, so we can tune into this Nityananda, our own innate bliss. It rests in the center of all things, in the center of our being, in the center of two actions, in the center of two breaths, in the center of two thoughts. Because what is in the center of those two things is a not doing. It is just a pure being of any two actions. Okay, let's place our hands onto our hips and take a wide stride. So a nice generous stride across your mat. You can see how long my stride is. I'm 5'6" is my height for reference. So, if you're taller, then obviously you may need to go wider, or if you're shorter, you go a little shorter, but it just feels that it's a good generous stride without being sort of, if we start going wider, we feel a bit out of control and it feels too tight in the outer hips. And if we come in narrower, kind of feels a bit like, nah. So find that stride. And then we're going to turn our left toes in. As you turn the toes in, lift up the heel and then just send the heel back. So in that sending the heel back, what we're doing, and you can do it a couple of times, is we're just starting to tease out the calf. So tease out those calf muscles. And then turn your right foot and leg out completely. So we end up with the front heel in line with the back instep. Now, I want you to really check that. One of the things I've noticed, and when I look at my own image on the screen here, is that you can't actually really see clearly the alignment, because actually, to me from here, I don't know whether it looks like that to you, it doesn't look like my feet are aligned. But I do have my front heel in line with my back instep, so you need to check that. So I can't fully check that for you. Take your arms out to the side. Let's raise up the lead arm and let's find that lift. And it's a continuous flow. And what we're doing is we're picking up the flow from the front foot up through the leg, up through the side of the body. And then we're going to feed it back down. We're going to feed it back down by allowing our pelvis to tilt. That's it. So this is what leads us. This is really important. I realized as I was doing an assessment of someone teaching yesterday online that I've indoctrinated lots of yoga teachers into this turn of the pelvis, which I'm very happy to have done. And you can extend out through the arms. That's it. So this allows us to keep spacious here. It stops us from doing this kind of turn. So we're lengthened. Perfect. Okay, let's deepen our front foot into the floor. Inhale and come up. Bring your hands back onto your hips, drop the shoulders, turn your feet to the front, and again, take that breath. That is a breath that calls you to attention. It calls you into the center of your being. And maybe it's several of those breaths that we need. And then you may turn your back toes in. And again, you can lift up the heel and you can reach through that heel, extending back. And then turning out the front foot and leg, aligning your front heel with your back instep. Brilliant. Body is facing towards the long end of your mat. So just check that. You're not turning towards the front foot body. Yes, excellent. I can only see your legs, Lynn, but I could see that you were turning into it. Okay. Take your arms out to the side. Raise up your lead arm. Perfect. Deepen in. And again, let's find that flow that comes up. And then as we give to that flow by letting the pelvis turn, we sort of feed it back. We feed it back and then we pick up this circular, this cyclical movement up through the leg, up through the side of the body, down through the arm and back. There's a lengthening from the pubis through the navel and breastbone, and then there's an opening across the chest and the arms. You can either look forwards towards the long end of your mat side, or you can turn your head up towards the ceiling or sky, those of you lucky enough to be outside. Breathe. Okay, well done. A deep pressing into the front foot as you inhale. Bring your hands back down onto your hips, and again, find that breath. Turn your feet to the front. Find your center. We can move at least to this first stage of bliss by coming into the center of everything. That's our core, into the center of everything. Okay. Turn the back toes in again, front foot and leg out again. So we're moving towards the right, left toes in, right foot and leg out. You can lift up that back heel, extend it back. So in a direction that's moving from the center of the toes to the heel. And then we're going to bend our front knee and we're going to extend through the thigh, allowing the hips to come down. And then we're going to bring the top arm up and we're going to come into it. So we're going to see if we can sort of come into it fluidly like this. Okay, so we're going to move both arms at the same time. Top arm's going to come up and the bottom arm's either going to come down to the floor, or you rest your elbow, your forearm onto your thigh. That's it. Breathe. And then let's reach. Let's reach between the back foot and the fingertips. Let's either press our fingertips into the floor or hand into the floor, or forearm into the thigh. And then just reach into the space. It's not a grasping kind of stretch. So some of these postures that feel particularly stretchy can, make us almost fight for the stretch, but we're not fighting for the stretch. We are giving to the stretch. It's an exploration. Again, it's that creative expression of movement, uchalata. Okay, let's inhale and press firmly into the front foot as we bring ourselves up, hands onto the hips. Take a breath, turn your feet to the front and settle. Relax your facial muscles. Find your feet, so feel into them. As a foundation for the alignment of your whole body. And we are aligning our body in these particular ways to align ourselves with our own awareness. That's the purpose. Okay, let's turn the back toes in, your right toes in, lift up the back heel, extend it back. Turn on the front foot and leg. So the front leg turns out. Remember, your body is facing towards the long end of your yoga mat. Front foot is in line with the instep of the back foot, and then we're going to take our arms out to the sides. Perfect. We're going to bring, we're going to bring ourselves down. So we're going to bend our front knee, reach through the thigh so it feels like, we are lowering down, not just a simple bend of the knee, but it's an expression of the thigh extending in this direction. Okay, and that's what takes us down. And then again, we're going to let our arms move together, and you might be free. You can go for a little wiggle of the arms like this, a little wave. And then we're going to come down. Okay, either to the floor or to your thigh, but try not to collapse into the posture. We're staying spacious across the front of the body. We're finding length through the side of the body from the back foot to the fingertips. But, that length is not just one action of, that's it, I'm stretching into the stretch. It's a continuous exploration that's opening out from the center. It's kind of this constant feeding of energy coming through. Breathing. Okay, we're not going to come up, we're going to come down. So let's bring that top arm over, land the hand to the floor, lift up your back heel so you rotate on the foot, place both hands to the floor, shoulder width apart, middle fingers pointing forwards, and then step back into downward facing dog. That's it, breathe. That's it, breathe. And again, you've got the opportunity for that creative expression of movement, if that feels right. Sometimes, we need to drop into stillness with the outer body to attune into the inner flow. Sometimes, we need to move the outer body to find inner stillness so that, there's a balance. And that balance, is based on the fact that, none of these things are any different, essentially. They have the appearance of a different approach, but our intention, as long as it is to move to integration, these are just simply means or upayas. And there are many means, but they all have the same intention to move us to awareness. So let's bring ourselves down to our hands and knees now. And let the breath flow. So we're mostly using this Anava Upaya, which is the individual means. They are methods or processes that we use, with the body, with the breath, with the mind. There is a deliberate action of us choosing to create an action to move us to awareness. So that action, again, it might be movement, it might be stillness. Okay, let's take ourselves back into a child pose. You can do it with your knees together or apart, and draw back. Don't be in a rush to get there. So see if you can feel yourself extending back, so you can really let the buttocks release towards the heels. And then you may fold forwards, and if you need some support for your head, you can grab a folded blanket or something to bring your head onto, or you are welcome to release down to the floor. And you may have your arms extended forwards. There's a few ways we can meet Balasana, child pose. And when you come out of it, I might show you what my daughter says when I ask her to do child pose. It's very different to this. But there's a few ways that we can meet child pose. We can extend into it, so we can really feel the extension through the sides of the body, the opening of the armpits, the work through the shoulders, so you're reaching your arms forward. So that's a slightly more dynamic variation of child pose. You may be lifting up your head occasionally, looking forwards to re-establish a lift in the chest and releasing the head down. Or you may move into a slightly less dynamic version where you might have your arms forwards and you bend your elbows a little so you can let the shoulders relax into it. So it's a slightly different variation, and it kind of depends on our needs at this moment in time. Or you can take your arms back and rest your hands next to your feet. And again, this is quite an internal type variation. There's a little more rounding of the chest. There's a little more closing towards the front of the body. So it may encourage us to move into a more internal state. If you are taking your arms back, it can be nice to cup your heels with your hands and just make a mudra between your hands and heels. So that's if you are holding your arms back next to your feet. But wherever you are, whether you're in a posture where you are in a less active position or a more restorative type position, whatever we're doing, we are giving ourselves to it fully. We give to the more active postures not by grasping and trying to make something happen, but by using those more active actions to, bring aliveness to the body, to bring that experience of awakening, or that, uchalata that I've been talking about, this sort of almost divine sparkle through the body of bliss, waves of bliss. And if we're in a more, what we would call a restorative posture, again, that's a term that, I think has certain connotations. Oh, yoga is ultimately restorative. But in a posture that's more passive, what we need to do is we need to, give to that in a way that is not checking out, but it's an opportunity for us to go deeper in. Okay, well done. When you're ready, slowly bring yourselves up, either walking your hands in towards you, or you can place your hands beneath the shoulders and press into your hands, or just uncurl in your own way. We're going to come down onto our back now, so come onto the floor. Okay. Bring your feet onto the floor, and then here we just take a few moments. Let's bring our hands, either both hands onto the belly, one hand on top of the other, or you can have one hand on the belly, one hand on the heart center. And we'll use this time here with our hands placed on our own body. To feel what's beneath the hands, not just the contact of the skin and the structure of your torso there. But where do we go if we follow that resting place of the hands? Yes, we can feel into the skin and the ribs or the belly flesh and the organs. But then where do we go? So we constantly go beneath. We go deeper and deeper and deeper. We go deeper and deeper into our own being, not in a sort of egoic sense, but in the sense of, connecting to that part of us that is, less egoic or individuated, but that part of being that we can all touch into, that feels the same. It's not defined by an individual personality, but it's that place of being. It's that place that calls us to this Satchitananda, to this being, consciousness and bliss. Okay. You may release your hands from your body. And I'd like you to roll onto your side and then bring yourselves all the way over onto your belly. Now, when you come onto your belly, if you have a tendency when you're lying on your front to feel really bony through the front of the hips or the pubis, then, pop a blanket there on the floor or a towel, and then bring yourselves there. That's it. Perfect. Okay. So you've got your elbows beneath your shoulders. You've got your arms forward, so your hands are shoulder width apart, and we're going to lift and extend our legs away from us, deepening the forearms into the floor and lifting up through the body. That's it. So there's this lengthening that comes up, reaching into the toes, breathing, playing, feeling in. So, we shouldn't feel compressive in the lower back. If we feel compressive in the lower back, first of all, you can feel into the top of the thighs. If you can imagine the very top of the thigh bones, not where they're, inserting into the pelvis, not the head of the femur, but the sort of the top of the front of the bone. And you can deepen that into the floor, and that should give you a little bit more freedom to lift up through the body. So that's our anchor point, through the top of the femur. Okay, perfect. Shoulder blades can deepen into the back. You can breathe. Okay, ease off now. Come down. Rest your hands on the floor. Rest your head on your hands, either sideways on or resting on your forehead. Elbows out wide. You can feel nice and broad across the shoulders, open in the armpits. Release your buttocks. Perhaps we didn't even notice that they were gripping. So just take a moment to let them soften. And soften into your breath. And as you soften into your breath, feel the connection between your breath and the life force that the breath carries. Okay, now we're going to bring our hands down so our fingertips are approximately in line with the top of the shoulders. Tuck your toes under so your feet are about hip width apart. We're going to push ourselves up into downward facing dog. Now you can pretty much push yourselves straight up, or you might draw back towards your heels, or you may go up more through a plank pose and then come back. I don't mind how you find your way into it, but just come into it. As it reach back, breathe, and we're going to transition this into an Urdhva Mukha Svanasana. We're going to pretty much go straight there from a plank pose. So it often comes through a vinyasa in many classes from Chaturanga Dandasana, but it's very strong for many people within the shoulders. So we're going to go for this method of leaning forwards into a plank, and then you allow the pelvis to lower down and your chest to pull through like this. Now you can either have your toes tucked under or toes extending back, and that will depend on the relative length of your torso and your arms as to which position is more suitable for you, and the available movement that you have. So that's it, breathe. Obviously, if you need to come down before I say, you come down and you can lie on your belly. Whilst you're there, you're deepening into your feet, you're deepening into your hands, and you're feeling this extension up through the front of the body, from the tops of the feet, through the shins, through the knees, through the thighs, through the torso. You're breathing, and then you're bringing your knees down to the floor. We're going to sit ourselves in an upright seated position, back on our heels, in Vajrasana, the posture represented by my top today, Thunderbolt pose. And then just rest. And then just rest. And just feel that release that comes into the back. So, you know, these back arching postures. I had in mind that I was going to do loads of back arches with you this morning, but that obviously hasn't happened. But they can be very, you know, they engage the back muscles. So normally when we come out of a back arch, you know, there is still a little echo of sensation there in the body. And our response to that, or our reaction, I should say, to that, is sometimes to try and get rid of it. But all we need to do is rest in the release that comes by itself, because it does come. Okay, so hopefully you're all feeling a sense of ease now into the lower back. And then as long as you are comfortable in your kneeling position, we can go from here. But if you need to go into a cross-legged position, that's okay. We're just going to come into a little twist. You may need something behind you, because we're raised up high from the floor because we're sitting on our own feet. So, you know, pop a block there if you think you need to reach to something. Come to a cross-legged position if kneeling is not very suitable for you for a period of time. And then we're going to find that lift again up through the midline of the body. We're going to inhale and lift up. And then as we exhale, we're going to bring one hand to the floor behind us or to the block, and one hand to the knee. Now we're going to, you can see as I've turned and then I've landed my hands, what I haven't done is added extra pressure through the hands, or certainly not extra pressure to turn the body. We can use the contact through the back hand to lift the body, and then the turn will come by itself. There can be a little light contact through the front hand against the outer knee to sort of complete the turn, but it's not creating the turn. This front hand is not driving the turn. It's kind of like the finishing point of the turn rather than the initiator of the turn. Position your head so the neck is comfortable, and feel free to move into the head and neck if you need to. Okay, well done. Return back to the center, drop the shoulders, hands on your thighs. Let your breath flow. And then when you're ready, inhaling and rising up again, and then exhaling and turning one hand to the floor or support behind you, one hand to the outer knee. That's it, breathing. Head position so it's so comfortable on the neck. Your forehead is soft and your jaw is released. This front hand is just the sort of the lid on top of the posture. The content of the posture is through the internal body. It's through the lift, through the midline. Okay, well done. Come back to the center. Hands on your thighs. Take one of those breaths that draw you in. And then from here, you're going to lay yourselves down. So you can come down for Shavasana, just to be clear. You may need a lift under your head. So, if your head leans back, definitely pop something underneath your head. You're at home. Maybe you might get your soft pillow from your bed. Whatever you need, you can pop under your head. It's fine to have your head on the floor if your head doesn't lean back, but many people enjoy a little bit of lift. So you can have a slight inclination of the chin forwards. We just don't want to overstretch the back of the neck. So you're either in a position like this or slightly like this. Okay. And then your arms, this external rotation of the arm. So here's an exaggeration, but you're free to do this. Sometimes when I lay down, what I quite like doing is stretching one arm across the body and then opening it out. And then I can get this sort of nice broadness across the chest and across the upper back. You can either rest like that or hands on the belly, one hand on the chest, legs extended out in front of you. So this is me. If I'm lying down, this is a sort of classic Shavasana position, but you can also be like this. You can have support under your knees as well if you wish. So a rolled up blanket, or maybe you've got the luxury of a yoga bolster. And then you lay yourselves down and rest your hands on the floor of the body. And close your eyes. So as we close our eyes, there is a deliberate intention to move in. This is why we practice Shavasana with our eyes closed. Most postures, sometimes we close our eyes intermittently in yoga, but normally we are having our eyes open. But when we come to Shavasana, we want to close our eyes because what we want to do is, develop that inner awareness, that sparkle of not just aliveness, but awareness of our aliveness. So we can bring our attention into our heart center. The heart center, the center of our being, it's the center of the energetic midline of the body. It moves between the pelvic floor and the crown of the head. The Sushumna, the Madhya Nadi, the Brahmadanda, it's got many names. So it's kind of the center of the center. That's what we're moving into. That's where we truly reside. And as we move deep into this center of being, what we find there is what we call shunya, the void. Now the void, it's not just simply empty, but it's this vibrancy, this vibrant space. The vibrant space that pervades everything, that underlies everything. And the vibrancy of that is what we call Shakti, power, which expresses through a pulsation. This is what creates the vibrancy, and it comes out of this union with consciousness, or Shiva. Or if we were looking towards the Dvaita Vedanta tradition, we would call this Brahman, the underlying nature of reality. So let's just reside there for a few moments. Take a slower, more spacious breath, reaching into the depths of your being with that breath and giving yourself to that exhalation. Maybe 1, 2, or 3 of those breaths. And then you may slowly bend your knees and place your feet to the floor. And then you may gently roll to lay on your right side and pause there. So this is the less stimulating side to lay on, so we slowly bring ourselves with ease out of Shavasana. So when you're ready, you may roll onto your other side before we begin our ascent. And then you can feel into any movement that your body might need here. Sometimes, we sort of tentatively reach out into the body and play with little bits of movement through the toes or fingers, or we stretch out, whatever we need. And then you can bring yourselves up from your side when you're ready. come to a comfortable seated posture. We're going to close the class together. So we're going to chant Om 3 times, and chanting Om, obviously we can't all hear each other, but we know that we're all chanting together. You can hear me and you can hear yourself, and we can feel the energy of everyone else's Oms together. So come to sit. You may bring your hands to your heart and close your eyes. Let's take a deep inhalation to prepare. Thank you all very much. Namo Vaha, Namaste. Thank you. Coming over to the screen, you're welcome to mute yourselves if you want to say bye. But thank you all for coming. It's been lovely to share this morning with you, and hope to see you all soon. My next